At 12:28 in the afternoon on Wednesday, April 29, a USGS webcam bolted to the splinters of an old boardwalk captured what officials are now calling perhaps the largest eruption of Black Diamond Pool since the 2024 explosion. Steam and muddy debris shot hundreds of feet into the air over Biscuit Basin, 2 miles from Old Faithful. The trail to the pool has been closed for 22 consecutive months. The eruption happened anyway. Nobody was nearby to be hurt, because nobody is allowed to be. 22 months of closure, 2 eruptions in 2 days, on April 28 and April 29, 97 earthquakes in the past month. A swarm of 16 quakes 16 miles south-southeast of Mammoth Hot Springs. A 19-mile wide patch of ground that rose for 6 months and then stopped. The first winter since 2015 in which the Yellowstone Caldera has not subsided at all. And a peer-reviewed paper published in Science 3 weeks ago that says the magma plumbing model under all of this has to be rewritten. This is the volcano whose 1959 earthquake killed 28 campers in a single night and created a lake that still has their bodies underneath it. The campground above the slide still takes reservations every summer. The boardwalk that was destroyed in 2024 has not been rebuilt. And on day 1 of the 2026 visitor season, 4.76 million tourists are about to walk through it. But here is the detail that tells the real story. The Yellowstone Volcano Observatory is not running models for a super eruption. They are publishing weekly columns about how to forecast hydrothermal explosions, like the one that just blew Black Diamond Pool to its largest event in 22 months. They are tracking earthquake swarms in the same fault system that killed 28 campers in one night. The story Yellowstone is telling EVO right now is not the supervolcano story. It is a smaller, more frequent, and statistically far more likely story, and it has already happened. Twice this week in a closed area with no one around. The question is what happens when it happens next and the area isn't closed. This is how it happened. On July 23, 2024, just before 10 a.m., Black Diamond Pool exploded. Boulders several feet across were thrown into the air, the boardwalk was destroyed, tourists ran. The explosion lasted 55 seconds and left a 1 square kilometer debris field. The pool became, overnight, the most monitored hot spring on Earth. Then on April 28th of this year, the camera was clear. Black Diamond erupted in daylight. The next day at 12:28 in the afternoon, it erupted again, and the second event was, per USGS classification, the largest since the 2024 blast itself. Biscuit Basin Trailhead has been closed since the morning of July 23rd, 2024, and is now in its 22nd consecutive month of closure. Here is what made it so much worse. A hydrothermal explosion is not a volcanic eruption. There is no magma involved. Superheated water flows beneath the surface in a confined pocket. Minerals deposit on the conduit walls until the conduit seals. Pressure builds behind the seal. When the seal ruptures, the water flashes instantly to steam 1,600 times the volume of liquid water, and the pressure release is explosive. Yellowstone has at least 25 cataloged hydrothermal explosion craters wider than 100 meters. Mary Bay, the largest, is 2.6 kilometers across, on the floor of Yellowstone Lake. It was made by a single event roughly 13,800 years ago. Tourists boat over it every summer. Pat Shanks, emeritus research geologist with the U.S. Geological Survey, published a Caldera Chronicles article on May 4th yesterday, proposing that geological thermometers based on hot spring chemistry might give days of warning before the next sealed conduit gives way. His exact words on the 2024 event, a demonstration of the power and potential danger of even a geologically minor event. A geologically minor event. Now look at the system underneath. The May 1st YVO bulletin reported something that has not happened in 10 years. The Yellowstone Caldera went through an entire winter without subsiding. The bulletin language, a subtle change in the style of caldera deformation. In the same bulletin, The agency confirmed the freeze of the Norris Uplift Anomaly, a patch of ground 19 miles across, that began rising in July 2025 and stopped abruptly in mid-January 2026. Michael Pollan, scientist in charge at YVO, confirmed it on May 2nd. The inflation abruptly stopped in January. It's there. It's just not growing. The bulge is still 19 miles across. It is no longer moving. The source, about 9 miles down, is doing something. The instruments cannot say what. And as of 3 weeks ago, the textbook model that explained that source for decades is no longer the one the journal Science is publishing. On April 9, 2026, Science published a paper titled Tectonic Origin of Yellowstone's Translithospheric Magma Plumbing System. The authors, Cao, Liu, Wan, Chen, and Lundstrom from the Chinese Academy of Sciences argue that Yellowstone is not fueled by a deep mantle plume. The magma source is shallow, transported eastward by mantle flow. The system is not a single liquid chamber. It is a magma mush, viscous, distributed across hundreds of kilometers. Lijun Liu, lead author, told Live Science, "Our work changes the understanding of how the magma plumbing system works, so future eruption models have to take this into account." Jamie Farrell, chief seismologist at the Yellowstone Volcano Observatory, was asked to comment. He said, "The consequences of these differing hypotheses is what we would expect in the future for the Yellowstone volcanic system. Every probability anyone has ever cited about Yellowstone, 1 in 730,000 for a super eruption per year, was calculated against the old framework. The new framework does not make an eruption more likely or less likely. It makes the math itself open again." But the strangest part of this story is not what is happening underground in 2026. It is what happened above the same fault system in 1959, when 28 people went to sleep in a campground and never woke up. Here is what is not making most headlines. There is a campground above Madison Canyon that is still open today. The road to it passes a lake that did not exist before August 17, 1959. That night at 11:37 Mountain Time, a magnitude 7.3 earthquake struck 6.5 miles west-northwest of West Yellowstone, Montana. The epicenter sat on the Hebgen Lake Fault, part of the same network of mountain range frontal faults Michael Pollan described on May 2nd as a pretty active corridor. Within seconds, the south wall of Madison Canyon failed. 50 million cubic yards of rock peeled off the mountain and fell into the canyon. The slide buried the campground directly. 28 people died. Most were inside the slide. Their bodies have never been recovered. Within minutes, the slide debris dammed the Madison River. Earthquake Lake formed behind it. It is still there. The bodies are still under it. Within 24 hours, 289 springs in the Firehole geyser basins erupted as geysers. 160 had never erupted before in recorded history. A single tectonic event opened the plumbing of the entire park's hydrothermal system in one night. The campground above the Madison Slide still operates today. That fault system is the same active corridor Pollan described, running from the Norris Uplift Anomaly north to Paradise Valley, Montana. The Norris Bulge sits on it. The April 13th swarm of 16 earthquakes sat on it. Black Diamond Pool sits within easy reach of any rupture along it. The question is not whether Yellowstone will produce a super eruption. It almost certainly will not. The question is not whether the supervolcano is fine. The agency answers that in every monthly bulletin. It is fine. The question is whether the 4.76 million people about to walk into Yellowstone this season understand that the actual hazards, the 22-month closed boardwalk that just produced its largest eruption since 2024, the 19-mile-wide bulge sitting motionless on a fault corridor that has killed before, and the 50 million cubic yards of rock that buried a campground in 1959 are not the supervolcano they came to fear. They are something smaller, more frequent, and already visible on a webcam 2 miles from Old Faithful. Black Diamond Pool is still simmering. The Norris Bulge is still motionless. The fault that killed 28 campers in 1959 is still active. Earthquake Lake has been there since 1959. The campers are still underneath it. The campground above the slide still takes reservations every summer, and the next pool to give way is already being measured. If this story is worth telling, subscribe. We cover more of these every week.